And we're back with more of the Shacknews Awards 2023 deliberations. This award is Best Trendsetter. So, what makes a trendsetter in the eyes of Shacknews? It's usually a game or a company or a service that is unique enough that it sees other companies try to copy it or steal it. We've seen this in the past with like PUBG or like the battle royale craze that happened at that time, or trying to think of other trendy things. Um,
Loot
but
boxes, Among
yes,
Us.
loot boxes were a trend. Like sometimes it'll be a concept or a practice, sometimes it'll be a game itself, sometimes it'll be a genre. But yeah, here are our nominees for this award for best trendsetter: Nintendo, Pizza Tower, Street Fighter 6, Vampire Survivors, Thirsty Suitors, and a little outside the box nominee, OpenAI, because it's really hard to tell the story of 2023 without mentioning OpenAI. And if you look at the trend of what's happening on Google, what's happening on Twitter, what Microsoft's been doing, Amazon, Nvidia, a lot of the biggest tech companies on earth are all figuring out a way to say AI during earnings calls. So, yeah, those are our 6 nominees. I'm gonna kick it off with Nintendo. Not that Nintendo has set every trend this year, but I would say that the Mario movie certainly did trend. That song Peaches was trending. Uh, the movie was financially successful. But outside of that, like we're talking about Tears of the Kingdom also released this year. Mario Wonder also released this year. And if you start to look around, you're like, wow, Nintendo really it certainly was trending all year, but it was also just kind of showing the video game industry here's how you adapt, here's how you bring a movie to, or here's how you bring your IP to a movie correctly. But also the Mario movie effect happened, right? So we talked earlier in a past category about how Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sold very well this year. Part of that is because of the Mario movie and how well of a job they did marketing the Mario Kart aspect of that film. So yeah, I just think Nintendo as a whole, we didn't want to pick one individual thing, but kind of Nintendo as a whole was trending this year. And they were a trendsetter because we are seeing, I think the third Sonic movie got announced already. We're getting a Zelda live action movie. All sorts of stuff is moving on that front. Has anyone here played Pizza Tower?
I watched
No?
TJ play it.
Yeah, I played a decent amount of it, and obviously TJ's the one who was kind of pounding the table for this nomination. He's on assignment today. But yeah, Pizza Tower is an indie darling that kind of released at the perfect time where a lot of people were getting their Steam Decks. So it kind of became this like 2D Wario game, Sonic like, Mario like for PC players who may not really like Mario games. But it's not, I wouldn't say it's just like a Mario game. It's fast as hell. I love the different styles of locomotion in it. It's funny. I think the art style is delightful. While I understand why it's nominated, I feel like Pizza Tower is a reflection of the genre that it's in more than it is a trendsetter. But as an indie game that kind of came out of nowhere, it's worthy of a nomination, but I think this is another category that is pretty stacked. So we'll get on to the next one. Who would like to talk about how Street Fighter 6 has been setting trends this year?
So I would like to speak to that. And the thing with Street Fighter, with just Street Fighter as a whole, is I want to preface this by saying that when it comes to single player content, up to this year, Mortal Kombat had everybody beat. They knew how to do single player content. They knew how to tell single player stories. And anybody that tried to copy them, like, I don't know, Street Fighter 5, it was terrible. It went just so poorly. And I don't want to speak ill of Tekken 7's story, but I reviewed Tekken 7 and I couldn't follow anything that was happening. I didn't know who anybody. I mean, I knew who people were, but I couldn't follow anything, anyone's motivations, nothing. Mortal Kombat knows how to tell a good cinematic story where you can follow the story, follow the characters, and have an idea of what's going on. It's great for casual players. So Capcom had to do something different with Street Fighter 6. And adding the open world single player is a totally different way to engage with fighting games, and one where you don't have to be good at the game. You can just be whatever level you're at, jump into that open world and still have fun with it. And on top of that, the Battle Hub is what people are jumping on, because the idea of going into like a pseudo arcade and challenging friends to strangers, putting your virtual quarter down, and also being able to play other games. We're starting to see other people doing it. We're starting to see Tekken 8 adopt something like that. We're starting to see Grand Blue come up with ideas like that. So I love that Capcom has come up with an idea that other AAA fighting games can latch onto, and who knows, maybe improve upon it. But I love that they got the ball rolling on that, because it's such a breath of fresh air for fighting game players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dang, did you have something you wanted to add? Yeah.
Yes, I've talked plenty about Street Fighter 6, but it's true. I agree with Ozzy. You know, it's been awesome to see. I'm glad that yes, with it setting a trend with the Battle Hub and such, it's just a good way to get friends together as well, who can do that on every platform, by the way, that's available on. But I'm such a fan of that compared to what I was seeing from some of the other games, like Guilty Gear, where you're just a little avatar, and it's not good. So I'm happy to see Street Fighter kind of lean into something new, also provide a way for me to get together with my friends, and we can watch and spectate different games, have our training wheels and that kind of stuff together if we wanted to, and all that stuff be in the world itself. Is really cool. And it's something that I think that more fighting games will take on down the road, and like Ali said, hopefully improve on. And with the way that Capcom's been going, there's nothing saying that Street Fighter might just drop an update at some point and make it even better down the line, when there's the super extra ultra edition or whatever comes out a year from now.
I like that I can walk through the Battle Hub and go around dressed as a Ninja Turtle, because if I actually tried to do that in real life, people would look at me strange.
Yeah, and they have classic games inside the Battle Hub too. You can hop on the arcade end and play, which is
4-player Captain Commando.
Yeah, and I think you guys are both kind of highlighting why this is perfect for this category, is that these are best practices now for fighting games. They may not be perfectly fleshed out, there may still be a better way to implement these things, but the Battle Hub, cross-play support, and also World Tour. I think World Tour, it feels like a Street Fighter story mode as opposed to them trying to make a Mortal Kombat
Yeah, when they tried to copy Mortal Kombat, it was awful.
Yeah, so I like that they went this opposite direction in World Tour. But I don't necessarily think that's the trend. But I do think that the way they handle multiplayer is certainly the trend.
It's the standard there that I like to see. It's also a situation where if I say a new character comes out and stuff like that, I can hop in Battle Hub with a friend and hit Training Room and try it out. If they've been playing with it for longer than I have and they already have some things down, I can now hop in there and have a session with them, and then hop right back into games with everybody else, and not have to make it a big deal.
And I think we should mention modern controls here as well, because that's something that it makes the game more accessible to a larger group of people. It makes it more fun to learn characters, and that's a trend that I think every fighting game could benefit from, using something like that. I also like how you can turn on the inputs when you're watching when you're spectating people. So you can, as someone who's not the best at Street Fighter, it's fun watching my friends play and be like, oh, okay, that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I got friends that are playing Geef now, playing some Zangief that could never get the input properly with modern controls. Geef. Now they can hop on there, and get it popping.
And to your point, Asif, if you're a Twitch streamer and you consider yourself a pro, you could jump on allow people to spectate with the inputs, and they can learn from you and make them maybe want to watch your channel a little more.
Absolutely. And I just like that I can fight anyone in World Tour. You can just pick a fight with just about anyone.
Pick a height.
Uh,
That hot dog vendor looked at me funny.
or the cop, or
Kick his ass.
Yep, that's just fun. That mode speaks to me on a primal level. But next up would be Vampire Survivors. I think the trend here is these auto battle games. We've seen so many like them. You've seen them on mobile. You've seen some, I believe. I don't know if Brotato shipped before Vampire Survivors, but a lot of people compare those two.
Yeah, so Brotato launched in June 2023. So it launched this year.
Oh, so it launched this year.
Yeah,
it was an
Survivors
early access last year.
So did the Renfield tie-in, and the Renfield tie-in actually isn't bad. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
so
Vampire Survivors is the
it's the Trendsetter. Like everyone,
Yeah.
people pointed at it and go, "Oh, look, there's how many copycats that have been inspired by Vampire Survivors 2." There have been some copycats, but there have been others that have taken the trend and implemented it in their own ways. Like a cursory look at Steam revealed to me like Battle Grid, Crafty Survivors, Army of Ruin, like you said, Brotato, Balls of Torment, 20 Minutes Till Dawn, Spellbook, Demon Slayers. Like there are so many other games out there that have taken what Vampire Survivors has started and this year made their own take on it. And that's super trendy.
Yeah, that is very much so what this category is about, right? Like we've seen it with PUBG and what happened with the Battle Royale formula. I think Fortnite to a similar extent, but Fortnite's an example of taking the trend and making your own thing. I'm kind of surprised Fortnite wasn't in this category.
In fairness, I mean, right after the cutoff is when they started suddenly releasing a bunch of games inside Fortnite.
Yeah.
I think if this had happened before the cutoff, I think we would have considered it.
Yeah, probably. But at the same time, these are some solid nominees. On to the next one, Thirsty Suitors. Would you like to talk about Thirsty Suitors, Ozzy?
Thirsty Suitors is a wonderful RPG that's basically about, it tells a story from a South Asian perspective. And I think that's a trend, is it not, Asif?
I think just getting protagonists that aren't white males in games.
That aren't parodies.
Yeah, that aren't a parody. Yeah, like an actual story about a first generation Daisy girl, who, I believe she's bi. Yes, it's like a very unique story. And like it's not, I feel like Outer Loop Games, like they took a pretty considerable risk in making this game, but it's delightful and it's cool and it tells a story that you don't have to be a brown person to enjoy this story.
It turns into an immigrant tale towards the end, but like you don't have to be an immigrant to enjoy this. And it's the Scott Pilgrim influence really makes it relatable in a lot of ways. Like anybody who's had a bad relationship can look at like some of the over the top stories that are presented at Thirsty Suitors and really relate to it and enjoy it.
Yep.
And
like
laugh,
if you've ever had a relationship, if you've ever had a relationship with anyone, any gender, any sexuality, like this game will appeal to you just at a very base level.
And almost everybody can relate to not being good enough in the eyes of your elders. Like they'll find fault with you. They'll think you could have been better than you were. Everybody can relate to that on some level.
There's nothing like a disapproving Indian uncle or auntie. But
no. Don't talk smack about the uncle. The uncle's great.
Uncle Hinty.
We love Uncle Hinty.
Uncle Hinty's great. I'm just saying, as a disapproving brown uncle myself, it's hard to earn our approval.
I really think, and between that and games like and some of the other games we've seen this year, stories from that perspective, from that South Asian perspective that we never see, they're great to see in the indie gaming space and maybe even beyond that.
Venba is another example of that.
That's the
game,
one I wanted to think of.
yeah,
Yes.
the Indian game about like cooking, and
Mhm.
that really that hit home like a lot. That I feel like those two games really represent two sides of that culture in a really cool way. Where it's like Thirsty Suitors hits very close to home for me. But yeah, Venba is just like, here's our culture in like another way. But yeah, I love that these stories are being told. You know, I know this is not necessarily Muslim or Hindu thing, but like, you know, there's like 2 billion brown people on the planet, and it might be nice to see other stories, you know, featuring people like this. And I think the trend of telling a story with a diverse cast and a diverse protagonist and a female protagonist, I think all these things are trends that Outer Loop should be praised for.
And they can be memorable breakout characters. Like we have like a stacked list for best NPC, but I would have put Dia up there against anybody if there was room for her.
Yeah. And the characters are great. This game also features skateboarding. I'm like, if you're gonna just throw locomotion in your game and it's a skateboard, I'm gonna play it. But yeah, Thirsty
I
Suitors.
appreciate that the skateboarding was optional.
But like Thirsty
I wasn't the
Suitors
best
really,
at the skateboarding part.
I feel like Thirsty Suitors did kind of kick off a trend here. And I hope to see more stories like this about just different groups of people, but also that tell a story that can kind of any human can feel. I think that's what they did really well there.
That's the beauty of the indie gaming space is anybody can tell their story. It's just a matter of what stories really break out and come to the forefront of our consciousness. And I hope that's what we see more of going forward.
And it's important to note that they chose to make this game instead of Falcon Age with a monkey, because that was the other game that they were working on. You could have.
I thought we wouldn't want to see that game too.
I did tell
Always have
Eka.
both.
I told Eka when he said that. I'm like, hey, I know you're done with Thirsty Series. Like maybe we can get this monkey game now because it looks really good. They showed like some really early dev footage of it, and I was like, well, that looks delightful too. So I'm just looking forward to more Outer Loop games in general. But yeah, shout out to Thirsty Suitors for doing it for a different culture that has been kind of underrepresented in gaming for a while. And I hope to see more of that across all cultures. I think that's cool. I hope other people are inspired to do something similar. And our last nominee, very strange after the list of gaming related things, but this is Trendsetter of the Year. And OpenAI with ChatGPT, it's a trend. Like it or not, it's definitely a trend this year. What we've seen, the AI effect on our industry specifically, and creation of games and games media, and the broader media space. OpenAI is kind of at the center of a lot of the story of this year. So, Bill, you said you had some words to say about OpenAI.
Begrudgingly, I actually find it kind of neat when I look at a category and I'm like, I don't really want to put my support behind that, but it's undeniable. And I feel like OpenAI is undeniable. I can't think, and listening to all these arguments, these are all things that I would feel good about voting for. But to me, OpenAI is undeniable. There's nothing that has been picked up as a trend anywhere in this industry or even adjacent industries in 2023 the way that AI has been, and that was kicked off with OpenAI. And we remember when Google had to quickly and very messily jump on board with their own attempts. We've seen websites called out for using AI to create articles. We've seen it happen with creators. I am not a fan, and also, if you know this, I'm not a like bang the drum for AI kind of person, but my email has been dominated. Earnings calls have been dominated. The conversations around like letting writers go and replacing them with AI has been dominated, and it is a massive trend whether we like it or we don't. Doesn't mean we have to like it, but the AI trend that was really kicked off this year with OpenAI is undeniable as a trendsetter.
Oddly enough, this trendsetter is breaking Google. So the trends that we see on Google have been broken by this trendsetter. Uh, it's caused many websites, like search engine websites, algorithms to shift. So yeah, it's undeniable that it's had an effect on society, and it probably will again. Uh, we kind of look at this like, are people going to look at what OpenAI did this year and try to copy them? Like kind of like what we were talking about with Vampire Survivors, right, Sam? And I think we're seeing that, right? Amazon's doing something, Nvidia is doing something, Apple's very far behind. We're starting to see hardware devices that are using OpenAI come out, the AI pin being the first one that we've really heard about, but there's other companies working on stuff. I've heard there's a rumor that OpenAI may make their own smartphone, uh, which would mean they might have their own OS and stuff. They're definitely a trend, but are they the best trendsetter? That's what we're here to find out.
To emphasize more what Bill said, yeah, it's interesting to see that in general. Just the conversation around it is definitely the definition of trend. Everyone kind of gold rushing into the AI space, trying to do some kind of subscription service or closed beta, trying to like be the first to like get this right to make billions of dollars, whatever the AI is evaluated at. Also, if you're probably more inclined to know that than I am.
OpenAI, and we should probably mention this, like what happened a few weeks ago with Sam Altman being ousted and then returning. They were trying to close a funding round that would value them around $80 billion. And this is a startup that began as a nonprofit organization founded by Elon Musk. So it's very confusing to see an open source company, an open source nonprofit org turn into a for-profit closed source company. That's a very strange thing to see happen. But that's part of the story. It's like I said, like when you tell the story of 2023, can you tell it without OpenAI? Probably not. Can you tell it without Nintendo? I don't think so either.
And then like even if I even have video editors reaching out to me and being like, "Have you used this service?" And I'm getting weird services to different video editing AI platforms, and they want to know what I think of it. And JG emailed me saying, "Have you used this? Like, what is it?" And so I was like, "Oh, it looks just like a video AI generator for text and stuff like that." Like I think it's really fascinating. But on Bill's point, I'm also terrified because AI is supposed to be tools that help us. But like it seems to be that everyone's goal is to replace everybody. Like that's not what it's supposed to do. These tools are, a car's supposed to help you get places, not replace your job as an Uber driver, right? But it's like even that's happening with the self-driving stuff. So like
My concern is not just about being made obsolete. My concern is about the theft of content, the rampant theft of copywritten content. And you talk about these video generators. How is it possible that I can set a prompt for Luigi dancing and they know what Luigi looks like?
Mm-hmm.
They had to at some point train their neural net on images of Luigi that Nintendo owns. And this is how we get from, oh, make a video of Luigi dancing, to now on Instagram you can generate emotes. And the first day that they had them, there was Luigi with an AK-47. So it's like, why I think it's worth bringing up a gaming and tech website to bring this up is that it is affecting the games industry. This discussion. There are narrative teams that are being laid off because of this, because some suit thinks that an AI chatbot can write a game better than a human can. So I think we're seeing decisions being made. They may not be the correct ones, but we're seeing decisions being made by very big companies. Yeah, go ahead, David. I think you have something.
Well, I was just going to say to your point, I think the first inclination in capitalism is how can we cut costs? How can we use this to cut costs? I'm not afraid of AI. I write all sorts of stuff. I've started using it as a tool, not to write my content, but it is effectively a new search engine for me. And I always operate, whether I'm using Google search, whether I'm using OpenAI, with the trust but verify sort of principle.
Mhm.
In that regard, it's just another tool for me. one I use almost daily. But what I wonder, Austin, I don't want to make you repeat yourself, but this is interesting because the category is best trendsetter, but not biggest trendsetter. Um how would you make those distinct? Like, what is best versus biggest in this?
I think when you say best, it implies some kind of good.
Yeah, is it positive? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think in the past, some people were like, "Why didn't we nominate COVID?" I'm like, "Cause COVID sucks."
Mhm.
Right. That's
Um,
what I was thinking of. That's what I was thinking of.
so it's kind of similar in that sense that OpenAI, I think, to your point, it's a tool. And I always say
Yeah.
this about technology. It's like a hammer is a tool. A hammer can become a weapon if you hit someone in the head with it.
Hmm.
And that's OpenAI. And that's GPT-4. It's like what society decides to do with AI determines if it's good or bad. In this first real full year of this as a technology, I don't necessarily think it's good. I think it's but to your point, David, it is what you use it for. Uh, so I don't think we can necessarily say the tool itself is bad, but like we sit on a lot of conference calls here, and every company has talked about using AI or how AI will be used. I will point out that Strauss Zelnick, the CEO of Take Two, did say that while some human intelligence may be recreatable, genius is not. Creative genius is not. And that's where we're at right now. Is that
That's the
yes?
thing.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry. I just want to say, like, to that point, some of the biggest authors in the world, Stephen King, John Grisham, have entered into a lawsuit saying, like, hey, you need to at least pay us
Mhm.
royalties if you want to feed all of our novels into your algorithms. Like, you can do it, but where's my check, sort of thing, you know?
Yeah, and I guess the concern is that the companies that are being sued by the copyright holders can run out the clock on
Yep.
us because they have more money, they have more lawyers, and those lawyers are very good at keeping things in court. So it's like right now, it kind of feels like the NFT space a few years ago, where it was just kind of the Wild West, and we saw how that turned out. I don't necessarily think AI is as much of a dog and pony show or smoke and mirrors, but how do you make money in this environment when your whole platform is based around theft? I think that's going to be a big question to have to answer this year.
I think it's also
Um,
like I know that we're talking about stuff that is adjacent to us or directly related to us in this industry, but I'm glad that you asked that question, David, and that you get the definition because when I said I had an argument in favor of OpenAI, it was with the understanding that it was, biggest.
Biggest,
That's how
right,
I
right.
was interpreting it. I don't want to. I don't want to make a case for OpenAI because I think AI is absolutely awful. And I think that we are very, very blind to how bad it's going to get. I think that true creative genius can't be replaced. Watch companies try.
mhm,
Watch every drive-through that you're going through in 5 years not have a human being with a job.
mhm.
Watch it be AI, and that's already happening. They're already
I,
doing that.
I mean, Panera got rid of cashiers. There are no
Exactly.
cashiers at Panera anymore. It's just
This is
people who
going to
work in the
create
kitchen.
so
Yeah,
many
David,
more
if you go to
problems than we
Panera,
can see.
it's a touch screen. You order on the touch screen and then you go stand where they put the food. There is no one that takes your money
Yeah.
anymore.
Our McDonald's does
This
that
I've
here too.
Yeah, but the
this is
difference
gonna
is McDonald's still has cashiers. The kiosks are, as right now, an option. I didn't realize that they had gone. I'm not surprised. I just didn't know Panera had already done that.
I don't remember who it was, but there are fast food joints that are actually experimenting in a few restaurants with the entire idea of just replacing the
Fully automated.
drive-through. Yeah,
Mhm.
and
There's
I
a
truly believe we like us going, wow, AI is interesting and there's really good ways to use it. I think that in due time, it's going to be, we're going to look back and think, this is awful. And boy, would we ever like to undo that.
I've said this a few times, just off the record or wherever, but like these AI evangelists, they never can answer a very simple question from me. So you're training all of these LLMs, these large language models, these neural nets, these computer vision networks. You're training all of them on our content, be it Shacknews articles, David's books, whoever. right? Or Greg's videos, whatever, right? They're using our data to train it. In doing so, they're making our content less valuable because they're not linking to us properly, they're not properly giving us credit, and even when you give someone credit, they're not going to click the link because they got the answer right there in their GPT result. What happens when everyone goes bankrupt? How will you train these platforms? No one has an answer. So there's something fundamentally flawed with it. And I find it amusing because some of these people are the most rabid capitalists you'll ever meet, right? But if they succeed in turning most of society into obsolete workers, they will usher in socialism. They will usher in that which they hate because universal basic income is going to be the only way to prevent civil unrest if we really get all the way there. So it's funny, this is the biggest cell phone in the history of billionaires ever, because they're going to end up pushing us to a socialist society. And I'm not anti-socialist, right? I'm just saying that's where we're headed if they actually succeed. And I have not heard anyone actually come up with a valid argument in favor of making human workers obsolete. So I think there's a chicken and the egg scenario here that I don't think anyone has the answer to. And we can wrap this discussion up, but like the lack of regulation in AI right now is terrifying. That's the part that scares me, David. It's not what it's doing today.
I'm not for it. I'm not for it.
No.
You know.
But I'm just saying, like, it's not what's happening today. It's where these things are going. The fact that we don't know why Sam Altman was fired is weird. Like, was it something technology related? Was there a moral or immoral decision being made about the future of AI? Or was it something even dumber? It's hard to say, but the fact that no one on earth knows why he was fired is very weird to me. And that, ignoring if it's the best trend, it certainly was trending for several weeks. Everyone was paying attention to X to see if Sam Altman posted, or hell, Satya Nadella was posting about it, the CEO of Microsoft. So yeah, it's undeniably like the biggest story. And it kind of reminds me of last year when I nominated Elon Musk for Person of the Year. It wasn't because I liked him, but he was certainly the biggest news story of the year. Him buying Twitter was that. OpenAI, I think, is similar in that sense, in this nominee.
It's also interesting how the trend of AI is clashing head on with other trends. For example, I would say maybe the second biggest trend of this year is companies forcing people back into the office. But if you are going to replace those people, you have empty office buildings. This is just one example, right? And so, boom, there's a way that AI is going to eat into a realtor's job. Like, what buildings are you going to sell if most people have been replaced by AI? It's just really interesting how this trend is like just going head on with others, and in many cases winning, you know.
And yeah, what you're talking about commercial real estate, I mean, you've driven by our office. There's plenty of offices for rent. And that's just going to continue. I think that is interesting that like they are diametrically opposed, but they both kind of come down to the same thing. The companies that are forcing people back to work, they either own those buildings or they're paying leases on those buildings.
Exactly.
So they don't want those to just be sunk costs. But at the same time, we also have to point out that we've seen a lot of very high-skilled laborers get fired this year. Layoffs of tech companies, of game studios. These are people who make a lot of money, right? These aren't, and no offense to people who are making like McDonald's wages, but these are like people who make six figures a year who are being fired left and right in the name of efficiency. Because just real quick before we vote, why I think this is happening at this point in the economic cycle is revenues are now flatlining or declining for most companies. And the only way to show earnings growth in that environment is to cut costs. So they're going to use firings and they're going to use AI as these stopgap measures. But in reality, if you're like if there's not going to be anything left. Like, that's my fear, is like what your business is when you remove all the people and you put AI in charge. I don't know if any of that's going to lead to an increase in revenue, because that's the real story here. Like, revenue, we're in this economy where everything has to grow forever. And that's just not how things work, ever. And I think that's the psychosis on Wall Street right now. That's the psychosis in venture capital right now. That's the psychosis when it comes to people managing video game website networks. That we were always going to have 2020 numbers. We're always going to have 2021 numbers. But in reality, everyone was locked in their house. And now they're not. So of course you have less traffic, right?
Yep.
But yeah, we're getting off track here, but the VCs and executives are definitely fixating on this in a way that we saw it with crypto in the past, VR in the past. It's definitely part of the zeitgeist this year. So yeah. There's our open AI nomination. I believe Steve wants to be dragged in here. If we can get Steve in here. Thank you. Hey, Steve. So yeah, Steve, we are at the voting portion of this deliberation, but we want to get you in here anyway. I don't know if his mic or cam is working.
I'm not sure what's going on with my microphone camera.
I hear you,
know.
but if you have OBS open, you might have to close it and then try again.
Let me see 1 sec.
All right, but let's get to voting. There you are. So yeah, just to recap, the nominees for this are Nintendo. This is Best Trendsetter of the Year, Steve. The nominees are Nintendo, Pizza Tower, Street Fighter 6, Vampire Survivors, Thirsty Suitors, and OpenAI. And we've just had an extremely long conversation about AI. And probably we'll be talking about it more in the future too. It's definitely something that we're all discussing. So I'm gonna start with Denny. What is your best trendsetter of the year, Denny?
Yeah, there's been some good ones. I'm gonna stick with Street Fighter in this category, because it set some very positive trends for the FGC.
Yeah,
but this is a stacked category though.
It is, and all of these deserve to be here for different reasons. David.
I'm going to go with Street Fighter 6. I think that the World Tour mode especially is so important because the ship sailed on most casual players caring about Street Fighter characters decades ago, honestly. And so I think that innovating there was really important for Capcom.
Donovan.
I'm also going to rock with the Street Fighter 6.
I'm going to wait. I'll vote later if needed. Greg.
I'm gonna do Nintendo. They send trends, and sometimes it takes a while for them to really see it, but they set a lot of trends when they do anything.
And that Mario movie is mighty fine.
Yeah, to David's point, it was best trend setter, not biggest trend. So that's the key point there. Yeah.
If you look at Nintendo as a whole this year, right? If you look at the Mario movie, Zelda, the other games released, and then
You didn't
Mario
even talk
Wonder,
about the launch of Super Nintendo World here in the United
Super
States.
Nintendo World, yeah, at
Yeah.
Universal Studios in Hollywood. And now we're getting a Donkey Kong attraction in Osaka. There's something going on at Nintendo. Ozzy.
I will stick with Street Fighter 6.
Bill.
Very happy that I have been given an out and I have jumped through that window and abandoned OpenAI with glee. I'm surprised Ozzy went with Street Fighter 6 because his argument for Thirsty Suitors won me over, and I think the best trend is encouraging more diverse stories and characters in games, and I think that, objectively, in my opinion, which is subjective, defeats all others.
My subjective opinion. Yeah, okay. I love it.
Very Canadian thing of me. I objectively believe this subjective.
I love it, and I hope more people are inspired by Thirsty Suitors for sure. Sam.
I'm going to have to stick with Vampire Survivors. It came out it set a trend, and a lot of people have copied it this year to great success.
Pretty wild. Pretty wild. Steve.
I'm going with Nintendo. I'm not sure if anyone is surprised by that, but that's where I'm going with.
I mean, I'm not surprised, but at the same time, it's on brand for you, Steve, you know? I'm just looking up TJ voted for Pizza Tower. I believe TJ was the one to nominate Pizza Tower. And my vote doesn't matter. So I'm going to vote for Thirsty Suitors. I was going to vote for them anyway, but I'm going to vote for Thirsty Suitors. I just think it's awesome. I love seeing representation in games. It's cool to see a studio that's as diverse as Outer Loop Games make a game like that. It's cool to see Annapurna take a chance on publishing that kind of game. So yeah, I was excited. I was excited when I saw an early build of it. I'm excited that it launched and it received a lot of praise. So shout out to Thirsty Suitors. But sadly, they are not the best trendsetter of the year, nor is OpenAI, which received 0 votes here. It's Street Fighter 6, which with its Battle Hub, World Tour, feat picks, really been all over the place when it comes to setting trends. So congratulations, Capcom and Street Fighter 6. You are our best trendsetter of the year, 2023.